In this video, we'll talk about the final example in Kellner's treatise, the example using enharmonicism and chromaticism. Interestingly, Kellner gives the realization himself, so this serves as a useful model for you after you've become familiar with the realizations in example 3.1. Here's what Kellner wrote in the introduction, to this example. I wrote out the realization to the following enharmonic chromatic example because it is probably too difficult for the beginner to play from the figures alone. This example can also be understood as a fantasy, meaning an improvisation, if one performs it with broken chords or arpeggios. So that's very interesting. That means that you could take his example as it's written here, and you could add some notes. You could arpeggiate. And he says that this can serve as an example of an improvisation. So that in itself is very interesting because it implies that you could do the exact same thing with the previous examples. But I think the enharmonicism and the chromaticism in this example is particularly emblematic of the improvisatory style where one is not bound to any particular key or to any particular subject, like in a fugue, and one is free to modulate to very distant keys, as he does here. So the restrictions that I have set for the beginner in Volume 3 are in part based on examples like this from Kellner himself, where he, for example, realizes 7/6 progressions in 3 voices. He doesn't do all 6 chords in 3 voices, though, as we can see here and here and here. But I think after you've gotten a handle on realizing 6 chords in 3 voices, it'll be easier to add that 4th voice as a variable voice that it's actually just a purely doubling voice, and it'll be easier to add that voice without causing parallels. Here we see that most of the time when he indicates the 5th in the 7th chord, he realizes it in 4 voices. Here's a 5/6 progression, which he realizes in 3 voices. Here's a 7 without the 5th, and he does it in 3 voices. But then here's a 7 without the 5th, and he does that in 4 voices. So the texture is free. The conception of voice leading is not all that strict. And I encourage you to also be a little bit freer with your conception of voice leading in Thoroughbass, because even if you look at treatises like those from Heineken and those from Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach, they mention that you can break out of the standard 4-voice texture to either add a voice and play 5 voices or drop a voice and play 3 voices. In conclusion, I really hope that this video series has been helpful for you, and I hope that it piqued your interest enough that you would like to buy Kellner's treatise, which is available for purchase on my website. To reiterate, I think that Kellner's treatise is the absolute best starting point for beginners of Thoroughbass today because it gets right to practical music making. It's not very theoretical, and if you use Volume 3.1 with my given upper voice, you will be able to sail through the exercises, and you might even have a little bit of fun with them, and you'll be surprised that you'll be playing a Thoroughbass fugue before you know it. So thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time on Go Figure.